Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are at the Dixie Center, the convention center in St. George, Utah. Today, our topic is water. Push a button, the water flows. But in an arid part of the South, like southern Utah, when the population grows, how does the water flow? Well, the solution to that can be found in a pipeline.
It's been said that when there is enough water in the community, there are plenty of problems for the people to deal with. But when the water is scarce, it becomes the #1 issue. And this is what water managers are having to plan for as they look for new water sources and new water as they plan for the future.
We've essentially doubled our population every 10 to 12 years for a long time. And as you look at our limited resources here and the demands on them, it's clear that if we're going to meet and sustain our economy and provide a future for coming generations, that we have to bring additional water resource into this county.
It's a simple problem. The more a city like St. George grows, the more homes are built, more businesses, more thirsty residents and lawns. The demand on the water supply increases. In an arid landscape like this one, where very little rain falls annually, reservoirs are constructed to store water for those not-so-rainy days. However, when there are no more sources of water to develop, but growth continues, another source must be found. So community leaders are looking to tap into a body of water that already exists, but is over 100 miles away, Lake Powell.
It is a pipeline project for the most part, which would take water out of Lake Powell, bring it in a large pipeline into Washington County and into our existing water infrastructure system. We've looked at lots of other options. We've looked at going up into the middle of the state and importing water, and it was our view as we analyzed that Lake Powell was a much more secure source of water and would be far less controversial than trying to import water out of some of the northern water basins.
The Colorado River Compact was signed in 1922 and divided the water of the river between the upper division states of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming, with the lower division states of Nevada, Arizona, and California. The upper and lower each enjoy about 50% of the water from the river, which of course includes Lake Powell as the major repository. Utah currently uses about 28% of the total upper basin allotment. The pipeline would draw more water than Utah usually claims, which makes the other states downstream a little nervous. Leaders in favor of the project argue that the water belongs to Utah in the first place and should be used here for the good of growing communities.
Clearly is Utah's water, which we have a right to and would expect to use it in Utah for our economy. It makes no sense for us to allow a Utah resource to leave this state when it's so vital to our long-term needs of our future generations and our economy.
The project is currently in the environmental analysis process, a time of study that could take years. Groups who oppose the plan range from individuals who want to halt the growth of the Southwest to states who feel their water rights may be infringed upon if the pipeline is approved. Local community leaders are hoping for a decision sometime in 2013, which would allow for construction to begin. If this timetable holds, the project could be completed sometime in the next 10 to 12 years.
Well, I think the project guarantees the future of Washington County. I think without it, you're eventually going to hit a wall where you have to make some very difficult choices.
Planning for the future of water is extremely important, not only for the residents who live here now, and for the ones who will come in the future. For the County Seat, I'm Dan Pope.
We will continue our discussion about changes, problems, and challenges in the Lake Powell Pipeline to feed southwestern Utah when we come back. Here from the Dixie Center, where the Festival of Trees is going on below us right now. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Industry is the symbol of Utah. Beauty is what makes it unique. Nowhere else are these two qualities exemplified, like in Uinta County. Oil and gas extraction, pioneer history, the spirit of hard work and integrity that feed our state. Built in the middle of the most spectacular backdrop in the West. Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah, where industry meets inspiration.
How would you spend an extra day in Utah Valley? Stay one more day. Visit utahvalley.com to make reservations. Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Have you ever wanted to go on a vacation to Mars? What about a visit to the Old West? Impossible, right? Well, forget what you think is real. In southern Utah's Kane County, other worlds are just an ATV ride away. The Old West lives on in every sunset. From the downtown streets of Little Hollywood to the vistas that have inspired the world. Never find yourself closer to home and yet farther than you've ever been. Southern Utah's Kane County, where anywhere is possible.
Check out these pictures from my vacation.
Where did you go again?
Garfield County, you know, like Bryce Canyon, Devil's Rock Garden,
Where's that?
Capitol Reef, Kodachrome Basin, Highway 12.
Wait a minute, I wanted to see more.
A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but there's nothing like experiencing the real thing firsthand. Gather your family and see the world's largest concentration of scenic attractions. Garfield County, Utah. Find the ultimate adventure.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about the Lake Powell Pipeline today. Joining us for our conversation, Ron Whitehead, who is the Public Works Director for Washington County. We have Ron Thompson, Ron number 2, who is the General Manager of the Washington County Water Conservancy District, and Commissioner Jim Erdley from Washington County. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the county seat.
Good to be here.
We've covered this topic before on the show. We've talked about the routing. We've talked about other communities trying to pick up on the project and be part of this water distribution from the pipeline to Lake Powell. We've even talked about its routing. What seems to be the issue now is that there's a lot of criticism about, can we afford, one, the water, can we afford the pipeline, number 2? So I thought that's where we would start our conversation today. Anybody want to chip in first?
Well, I think, you know, somebody once said, you know the truth of the water when the well runs dry. And this county, before it had the well run dry. Lake Powell, while it's an expensive project, is not more expensive than some projects we've done in the past based on the population we have and expect to have. I think the project is not, if it's going to, it has to happen if this county is going to continue to grow and thrive into the rest of this century.
So, when we're talking about the cost of the project, okay, how are you going to cover that? You know, I mean, what's the process, Jim?
I think you're probably referring to the newspaper article that showed up that day before yesterday.
Yes.
I think. You know, I have a lot of problems with that article. I think it was not terribly accurate. They've got.
That's why we have this show.
The discussion with the committee was concerning, and Ron, you correct me when I'm wrong, but was concerning water projects across the state, and scope was in excess of $16 billion. And we've got a project here that represents 1/16 of that discussion. And you know, we need the water. We need it for redundancy. We need it for our community to be able to exist and grow and move forward in the future. The project itself is not, in my opinion, not prohibitive at cost. Ron's already alluded to the fact that we've had other projects that were more expensive to us than this one is. You know, and Quail Creek would be an example of that, I think. You know, that compared to our taxable value was, we're 1/10 of what that was. So we can handle it financially, but that discussion that committee had the other day was a statewide look where it was decades ahead. Our project here, the Lake Powell Pipeline, is years ahead. We've got planning to do, we've got permitting to do, we've got you know, environmental assessment work to do. There's a lot of things that have to happen, but we need to be moving toward that end. And I don't think we ought to be discouraged by the newspaper report on that financial.
You know, it is interesting because the uptake of the bill that was introduced by Representative Painter was to take part of the earmarked 30% that was going to transportation, and as it hits a certain cap in about 2018, to take the growth beyond that and put it in the revolving loan programs to help finance some of this $16 billion infrastructure. I'm not totally sure. You had comments from the audience, but the comments to the committee really were, do we really want to continue to earmark? We ought to think about this. It wasn't, we don't, in fact, across the board, you heard everyone say, I'm for water, I'm for developing water. We need to find a better solution. I'm not for earmarking funds right now. And frankly, I think the discussion has to go on.
Well,
but there's still a lot of work that has to happen on Lake Powell before it's really ready.
And that
for
was
funding.
that was really the objection, I understood the committee, Ron, was the earmark aspect of it, as I recall.
What is the importance of having a redundant system of water for water delivery to a community?
We live in a very arid climate. We're right on the border of the desert here, and we need water to survive, you know, not only figuratively but literally. And our water sources, a lot of them are deep well water sources. We have some storage now that Ron has built up in Quail Creek and Sand Hollow, but if we have a geological event that would sever those wells, one or more, we would be out of water in a very short time. And the Lake Powell Pipeline would provide a redundancy for our water systems, plus an additional source that would help with the growth too.
Well, and didn't you actually build Sand Hollow because of the pump station between it and Quail Creek is really a receptor for water from the pipeline? Wasn't that really the design? So this has really been years in the making.
It has been years in the planning, and Sand Hollow has always been envisioned as a terminal reservoir for the Lake Powell Pipeline, actually from before it was built. I do think, to add on what Ron says about redundancy, you have a county that has grown from 13,000 people in 1970 to 150,000 people today. Even the state's projections, which frankly rarely have been right here, they show us at nearly 500,000 people by 2050. There is not enough resource in the Virgin River to meet that need, and it's more compounded if you look at all the models with climate change and look at what they're projecting in the Southwest, and we're a Southwest river system, the Virgin River. They're projecting for the Virgin, the Salt, the Gila rivers a 20 to 50% decline in surface stream flow, and we're totally dependent on one source. That's not terribly smart planning on our part. We've got to find a way to diversify our water resource if we hope to remain a vibrant community.
There are some detractors that would say, hey, just stop your population growth and live within your means, because it is the desert Southwest. What are you doing this for anyway? Why are all these people living here? And I hear that a lot. And
you know, I do too, and it's from those who just came yesterday. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes. That probably makes a lot of sense.
I'm here, close the door. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's never been, water is not the thing that drives growth. People are going to come here. They want to come here. When you look at particularly Utah's Dixie area, you have a great climate. You have world-class vistas and views. You have the baby boomers retiring, coming here, wanting to come here. You got a very good new modern airport. You got world-class medical facilities. You've now got a four-year college, soon-to-be university. The quality of life is really second to none here. Now, I realize there's a fair amount of other things you deal with when you get more people, but there's also a lot of benefits that come with more people. You know, I used to have a board chairman who says that everybody talks about the good old days. He says, the heck with those good old days, I like these days better. You know, I like the fact I can go to a hospital and be taken care of. They don't have to fly me to Vegas or to Salt Lake. I like the fact my kids can get four-year degrees. Those can't happen without population. And so there are downsides and upsides. But in this county, maybe more unique than any, is that we're going to have a very dense population strip, but we're located such that anybody can be out almost in the wilderness in 15 or 20 minutes from wherever you can live in Washington County. There are few places in the world you can do that.
That's true. And we will continue this conversation on the county seat. We're discussing the Lake Powell Pipeline, its funding, and an update on this. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Miller County.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure, snowmobile action, pristine skiing, spectacular solitude. Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today has been the Lake Powell Pipeline. We have covered kind of some of the needs for the pipeline and cleared up some of the controversy over the cost in the article that recently appeared in the paper. Right now, we would like to turn our attention to what drives the economic side of this and get the perspective, the historical perspective on it. You know, right now we're building for the future, but haven't we always had enough water in St. George?
St. George as we've mentioned, Ron just talked about, is a dry place. We're in the desert. We're in the Mojave Desert. The water resources scarce. And we were just reminiscing here a minute ago about days gone by. That when I was a kid growing up at home, we had our water rationed. There was about 2 days a week that we could turn a tap on outside. Otherwise, I remember my mother taking wash water out and pouring it on our flowers and on the front lawn in spots, because we just didn't have the water. And you know, and that was when our community was about 4,000 people here in St. George, or even less. And so we've had folks that have come along in the past and have made plans for our water needs, have had the vision and the courage to move ahead with it. And now we have an adequate supply for our current needs, but we need to plan for the future. We need to have a redundant source of water. We've got water that belongs to Utah, that's going on down the Colorado River, and it goes down into Nevada and Southern California, and it's Utah water. And we ought to be using that water here for our needs.
Ron, are you concerned at all that if you don't start using that allocation, that at some point the Colorado River Compact will look at it and reallocate?
Well, you would hope the compact couldn't be reallocated, but you hear, if you watch the debates, and I've been president of the Colorado Water Users Association, that board, and there's always debates about, well, you guys aren't going to use your water, we ought to take it down here and use it, and so forth. You know, the last accord, which was signed in 2009, in theory, set what we would call peace on the river till 2025, which essentially the states agreed that the lower basin would not protest upper basin development as long as it's in their compact allotment. Now, there's no promises after that you're going to get much done. I think any of these upper basin states need to be concerned of making sure that they have adequate plans to prepare to use their allocation. You know, there are always those groups that are either want to remove the dams on the Colorado River, or they want to take upper basin water, Utah water, Wyoming, Colorado, and send it to the Mexican Bay Delta, or send it to Los Angeles, and you know, the purpose of the compact was to protect the future for the posterity of those people who had come into these upper basin valleys. And I think it's critical that we have plans to take that water and to use it. It's really the lubricant that makes our society function. And there's only, you know, water, we don't destroy water, but there's only so much of it. And while it recycles and comes back through the water cycle, it's still, and we have a source that we need to use wisely, but we need to protect it because it really is the future of our society.
Okay. Ron, how far out do you have to plan a project to stay on top of a water supply as Public Works Director?
Well, there's short-term projects where communities will start and they'll you know, recognize the need and they'll start planning for a new well system. But Ron's planning for a future here that's 20, 30 years out where we will absolutely need the water. And we've been fortunate to have local leaders here that have always had that foresight to know there would be growth and we would need more water, and they've planned ahead, and that's why we're where we are today, is they planned ahead and made sure we had the water today. So it's a different answer depending on what kind of project you're looking at. It can be short term or big term. So
I understand that. Well, listen, we will come back to the county seat here in just a minute. We have been talking about the Lake Powell Pipeline, its impact on southwestern Utah, how far out it needs to be planned. We'll get some closing thoughts on this argument in just a minute as we bring you our show from the Dixie Center, the convention center located in Washington County, where the Festival of Christmas Trees is going on right now. We'll be back in just a minute on the county seat.
Industry is the symbol of Utah. Beauty is what makes it unique. Nowhere else are these two qualities exemplified, like in Uinta County. Oil and gas extraction, pioneer history, the spirit of hard work and integrity that feed our state. Built in the middle of the most spectacular backdrop in the West, isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah, where industry meets inspiration.
What brings you to St. George?
Business meeting.
Staying long?
Just here for the day. Quick in and out.
Hey, I just landed. Can we meet in a half an hour?
Not too bad. Why so fast?
Stay any longer? We'll run out of things to do. On second thought.
Buddy, something's come up. I'm gonna need another hour. Can we push the meeting till noon? I am definitely gonna need to reschedule. Holy...
Sit back, relax, and enjoy your 45-minute flight to Salt Lake. How'd that meeting go?
I should have booked a weekend.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Welcome back to the county seat. We've been talking about the Lake Powell Pipeline here at the famous Dixie Center in Washington County with our guests today. I would like to talk for a few minutes about where we are in the planning process and the number of hoops that you started with, how many you still have to go through. And I'll just toss that on the table and let anybody pick that conversation up.
Well, you know, these kind of projects that are as large as the Lake Powell, as you've seen with many of Utah's big projects, whether it was Central Utah or some of the Jordan Valley projects or Weaver Basin, take decades in some instances to plan. We've been actually working on studies on this project now nearly 15 years. The state made it a state project in the 2000s, and we have now been working on environmental assessment. I think we're 4 years into that. We think we'll be another 2 or 3 years. We've completed, I think, 23 environmental studies. We've consulted with probably 30 Native American tribes and federal and state agencies throughout the Southwest that all have input into the project. The project has a lot of features to it. It has some pump station. It also has a lot of hydropower potential as we lift it from Lake Powell and then drop it into Washington County. So the Federal Energy and Regulatory Commission, we refer to as FERC, has a lot to say over what that project looks like, and we're about halfway through the FERC process. We're hoping that we're right now adjusting. They came out with a new population study, the state, which we'll see hopefully final draft here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll take those studies into account and move forward. I think we're hoping in maybe 3 years we'll see a final environmental assessment, and then we'll know a record decision. Then we'll start moving on how do we really finance the project and looking at where we're at population-wise. You know, the trick on these kind of projects is And with water entirely, you've got to keep enough in front of your economy so you don't create a train wreck, but you can't bring it on too quick because you still need to be able to pay for it. And that's the balance that I think any public official goes through as they look at public works projects, is to make sure it's here as we need it, but not here way before we need it, but not here when we got a disaster on our hands either.
Well, aren't some of the other communities along the way or further down the line also interested in becoming part of this project?
Well, right now, of course, the Washington County is in the project, and Kane County, and the pipeline goes through both of those counties from its start to its end, and we're both working well together in the planning process. We meet at least regularly with our engineers and planning staff and the state. The lead on this, we talk about Lake Powell being a Washington County project or Kane County. It's really a state project, much like you see state projects in California and other places, and then we will buy that water from the state as it's built and participate, and they're working with us so to make sure the project is planned that will meet our needs and also meet the state needs. And I think we've got a good process that we're working on.
That's good. Now, one of the interesting characteristics that we have on this, there's not a whole bunch of time, but the power generating has always been very fascinating, because you're going to pump it up and you're going to generate electricity on the way down. Will that significantly defray the costs?
A lot of it. It'll produce, won't produce all the power you need, but a substantial part of it. One of the intriguing parts of this project, which doesn't deliver water at all, is just the pump storage capabilities as we come off the Hurricane Cliff. If we were a power utility, we'd probably be pushing that for a different reason. When we're water, we're probably going to have to partner up, but there's the potential to put a 300 or 400 megawatt plant at the base of Hurricane Cliff that would be a tremendous peaking source for this southwest area, and it's being planned with this same process. It likely would be the last component ever built on it, but it's still being planned so that the project could facilitate that kind of a facility. And the benefit of hydropower is it's green. It can come on and off quickly, and you know, electricity, like water, if you're at the end of the ditch, you always have shortages, and so the hydropower we think will be very beneficial to this area.
Very good. Last words on economic impact, Commissioner?
Well, without an additional water supply, our economic future is pretty bleak. And so, as a commission, I know we're very supportive of this project, and we look forward to it starting about 2022.
Very good. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the County Seat. We invite you to check out the County Seat, our website, our YouTube page, and our Facebook page if you'd like to make comments. We'll look for you next week on the County Seat. Thanks for joining us.